The days where you could reach financial freedom through the college, job, retire route seem to be just about over. Whether you want to enjoy your life without waiting for retirement to do it, your job is quickly becoming a drain on your creativity, or you just realize that whatever plan you thought you had can be snatched away in a moment, making the decision to achieve financial freedom is likely at the top of your mind. There are a lot of appealing ways to get on that path, like joining the FIRE community, starting a business, or learning a high-value skill and getting a high-paying job. I have tried all of those, but what's got me to the place where I can modestly live off of my passive income and continue to grow that income while I work when I want and where I want has been real estate investing. I've documented on this channel the successes and the failures that I've run into as I've tried different real estate strategies. And so I want to break down not only how difficult it might be, how long it might take, and how much the state of the market impacts your chances of success, but I also just want to show you exactly how the math works to make your first $10,000. The first 10K I made in real estate is probably the most important 10K I've ever made because it showed me what was possible and it completely changed my mindset. So let's talk about how to get you your first 10K. We'll count down from most to least difficult, and for our first strategy, we'll talk about one of my properties. This right here used to be a garage, and it was behind a main 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. We renovated that front house and also converted the garage into a studio apartment. But here's the kicker on why this could be such a good strategy to make your first 10K with. We furnished this space and put it on Airbnb. And while you might not do a full conversion and renovation, what got me here was starting with Airbnb arbitrage. Let's start with the Airbnb part, then we'll get to the arbitrage. Let's assume that this property rents for $2,000 a month. It doesn't, but just pretend I live in New York City. If we assume that most months have 30 days, we can take the monthly rent, divide it by 30, and get a nightly rent of $67. But the same property, because it's furnished and placed on Airbnb, would not rent for $67 per night. It would likely rent for much more, like $200 per night. But why? I think about Costco versus CVS. Things are cheaper when you buy them in bulk. If you buy toilet paper at CVS, it's gonna be a lot more expensive. But if you buy it at Costco, it's gonna be in bulk and it's gonna be cheaper by the roll. The same thing happens when people rent out properties. By signing a 12-month lease, you get a monthly price of $2,000, which is a nightly price of $67. It's basically a bulk discount. The tenant is agreeing to rent more nights and therefore gets each of them for less, just like the toilet paper at Costco. But if the property is available to rent for just one night, it's more expensive because you're buying less, just like at CVS. The owner doesn't have the assurance that they'll get an entire year's worth of rent, and so each night is priced at $200 to make up for that risk. But none of this matters if you don't have the money to actually renovate a property and turn it into an Airbnb, which is where the arbitrage part comes in to help you make your first 10K as a beginner. Arbitrage is where you take advantage of something that is priced low in one market, but priced high in a different market. So if this place costs $2,000 per month as a 12-month rental, an arbitrager would go to the property owner and agree to pay that long-term rent. They'd also get permission from the owner to furnish the property and put it on Airbnb. Now, although they'd be responsible for paying the owner the $2,000 of rent, which again is $67 per night, they'd likely be bringing in about $200 per night. But remember, there's no guarantee that they'll have a paying guest every single night on an Airbnb. So let's imagine they make $200 per night and have guests for about 20 nights per month. Even still, $200 per night multiplied by 20 nights is $4,000 per month. That's what makes this deal an arbitrage. You as the arbitrager are paying the long-term rate of $2,000 per month, but making a short-term rate of $4,000. And although it seems the hardest part of this would be to get permission from the owner, it's actually not. I've had multiple landlords agree to this when I ask them. And it's because from their perspective, they have a high level of confidence in getting their money, which they might not from a traditional tenant. They're also no longer responsible for the small expenses related to the Airbnb guests, like the kitchen sink leaking or light bulbs needing changing. So as a landlord, their life becomes much more passive. I will say that if you're doing this strategy, it's not $2,000 of pure profit a month. You'll still have expenses. So let's say those average around $500 a month for utilities and repair. So $1,500 a month in your pocket, it would take you 6.5 months to get to $10,000. Of course, furnishing the place costs money too. And we spent about $5,000 furnishing this studio, and that's not including the appliances because as an arbitrager, those would likely already be there for you. So if you pay yourself back the $5K and you want to make an additional $10K, that'd take you about 10 months. Now, if you've got a lack of confidence in running the numbers like this, either for Airbnb, Burr, house hack, or wholesale deals, I get it. This is the number one thing that people ask for help with. And so I've created a Run the Numbers monthly training program that includes over 2 hours of training on exactly how I run numbers for each strategy, as well as monthly practice problems with an answer key, and access to the rehab calculator my brother and I have been building that comes with the price of common renovations built in. So all you have to do is enter what repairs the property needs, and a price estimate gets spit out for you at the end. The more people use it, the more accurate it gets, so you can get all of that for free by using the link in the first comment. All right, Airbnb arbitrage. Not bad, but next, let's talk about a strategy that could add a lot more to your net worth than just $10,000, and that's the Burr strategy. Unlike Airbnb arbitrage, you actually have to buy and renovate to do a Burr. But on the other hand, you're not just able to add money to your bank account, but to grow your net worth really quickly. I made this video about how I added over $50,000 to my net worth last summer using the Burr, so let's break down how it works. Burr is an acronym, and it stands for buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. We'll go through each step so you understand how they work together, as well as lay out the math. Buy. Just what it sounds like. But the key to successfully executing a Burr is to buy a distressed property. This means that you will pretty much always use either cash or a short-term loan like a hard money or private loan to make this initial purchase. I'm gonna try to keep all of the numbers throughout this video consistent, so let's imagine that just like the Airbnb, in perfect condition, we'd get a property that would be worth $200,000. But again, it's distressed, so it's actually only worth about $110,000 right now. So that's buy. Next is renovate. And the purpose of the renovation is to raise the value of the property and create equity between what you bought it for and the money you spent renovating it and what it's worth once the renovation is complete. Let's say you use an additional $30K of your private loan for the renovation. This brings your total all-in cost to $140K to purchase and renovate the house. And since the property is worth $200K, you've created $60,000 worth of equity between the two. After the renovation comes rent. You now have a property that's in improved physical condition and you can rent it out, creating income for yourself. But remember, you're still using a short-term loan at this point, which is just supposed to last you long enough to complete the renovation. And so once it's done, you want to rent the property out, but pretty much at the same time, move on to the refinance step. A refinance is a strategy of replacing your short-term loan with a long-term loan. That short-term loan generally has much higher interest rates and fees, so they're expensive and you want to switch it to a long-term loan as soon as possible. There's also a specific type of long-term loan that makes Burr deals especially appealing, and it's called a cash-out refinance. So we've got a property worth $200K, and we can cash out refinance for 75% of that amount, which is $150K. We spent $140K buying and renovating the property, and we likely spent another $5K paying back the interest and another $5K on holding costs like utilities, insurance, and taxes. So at the end of the day, we've paid ourselves back everything that we spent by using our cash out refinance. But here's what confused me when I first heard about this strategy. What about the $150K that we used to pay everything back? Won't the bank want that money as well? If you're thinking along these lines, good. It's a very good question to ask, and the answer is yes. The $150K that you took for that cash out now becomes the long-term mortgage that you'll pay back to the bank each month for the next 30 years, which would cost somewhere around $1,350 per month. That's why as soon as we finished the renovation, we rented the property out. Now we have a tenant who's paying the same $2,000 from our previous example, and when we use that to pay the mortgage, we have $650 left over. If we ran our numbers correctly, that also leaves room for other expenses like taxes and repairs, so let's take another $300 per month out for that, and we're left with $350 per month or $4,200 per year of cash flow. At that rate, it would take 2.3 years to make $10K from our cash flow, which I know is a lot longer and slower than making $10K with the Airbnb arbitrage, but let's consider two things. One, you have a property that is worth $200,000, yet you only have a $150,000 mortgage on it, which means you've added $50,000 to your net worth with just one deal. Second, because the Burr strategy lets you get your purchase and rehab money back with that cash out refinance, you can do deals very quickly without continuously needing to save up for your down payments again. I've burred 8 units where I was able to reuse my short-term funds over and over again very quickly, so the cash flow adds up as you do more deals. If you like the idea of adding value to your net worth, but you don't like the idea of having to take small amounts of cash flow every month, you could decide to fix and flip the property instead. All of the numbers would be the same as the Burr. $110K purchase price for that distressed property, $30K rehab, which puts you all in for a property at $140 when the property is now worth $200K. But instead of going to the bank and getting a cash out refinance and renting out the property, you'd put it up for sale. That leaves you $60,000 before you pay your expenses, and let's imagine that after the taxes, fees, and commissions, you've got $42,000 left over. That just made you way more than the $10,000 in a few months, but there are obviously risks involved, such as the fact that the market can be volatile. What if by the time you finish the renovation, the market has dipped and you can no longer sell for $200,000? Or if you don't have construction experience, instead of spending the $30K budget, it could end up being a lot more. It's kind of like they say on Wall Street, you can eat well or you can sleep well, but you can't do both. Oftentimes, if there's a high reward opportunity like flipping can be, there's also a high risk. And if that makes your stomach churn a bit, our next strategy might be more appealing to you, and that's called house hacking. This is a strategy that's near and dear to my heart because it's the one that I got started with. House hacking is when you buy a property to live in while renting out the extra rooms, or if it's a multifamily property, the extra units. First, the math pretty much goes without saying that if you buy a house for yourself to live in, it's gonna cost you money on a monthly basis. You have to pay the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance, and on top of that, anything that breaks is your responsibility. You gotta mow the lawn, you gotta shovel the snow. You get it. This can actually be a huge reason that people stay away from home ownership despite the other benefits, because having a property that only has an outflow of money can be a huge risk and a financial drain. But with house hacking, you can slow down or even completely stop that outflow of money and create an inflow. When renting out a portion of the property, it may be a room, it may be a basement, maybe a separate unit. The rental income, though, from your tenant can help with the expenses, and if there's enough income, it can completely cover those expenses. Let's imagine again that you're looking at a $200,000 house. It's got 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It's not distressed because you don't want to renovate it, you want to move into it and live there. Loans for people who intend to occupy the house generally have just a 3.5% down payment, which in this case would be $7,000. I always tell people though, apply for down payment assistance. There are a ton of federal and state programs that will help you with your down payment, and that's how I got mine paid for me when I bought my house hack and got it for $0 out of pocket at the closing table. Either way, your monthly payment's going to be around $1,709, and let's imagine that you live in one of the bedrooms and you rent out the other 2 for $650 per month, which brings you in $1,300 per month. So there's still $409 left over, and you're responsible for repairs and expenses. So say each month you spend about $600 to live there. Now, this may seem like you're losing money each month, which maybe technically you are, but imagine that you were already paying $1,500 to rent your old place. So now you actually have $900 more than you would have. And so in 11 months, you'll have $10K more in your bank account. If you use that down payment assistance, then great. And if you spent the $7,000 yourself for the down payment, then it would take 18 months to get $10,000 and pay yourself back your down payment. Not too bad, but I think we can do even better with strategy number 1, which is wholesaling. It's like the holy grail of the make $10,000 a month in real estate ads. I started this strategy right after house hacking my duplex, and in a typical deal, you have an owner who's selling their property, usually at a steep discount because there's some type of situation that requires it. The problem is most homeowners who need to sell cheap and quick can't put their distressed property on Zillow, and they don't know where to find an investor who will buy it in the bad condition. This is where the wholesaler comes in. I think of wholesaling as being like a middleman or a middlewoman, or if you just want to call it like a professional deal finder. Although in our Burr and flip example, we said we would buy the distressed property for $110K, in this case, because the wholesaler has to do the work of bringing the buyer and the seller together, they actually get a steeper discount and sign a contract with the owner for $100K. Then they take that contract and sell it to a buyer in their network for $110K. That buyer might go on to flip it or burr it, doesn't matter to the wholesaler. The seller got $100K for their house and got out of their distressed situation. The buyer got a property that they can go make money on, and without ever owning the property, the wholesaler got $10,000 for their work to put the deal together and make it happen. This is how I made my first $50,000 in real estate before moving on to any of those other strategies. But being a successful wholesaler hinges on your ability to run the numbers correctly on your deals. I see posts in my local Facebook group all the time where cash buyers are sharing screenshots of the terrible deals new wholesalers are sending them. If you can't confidently produce accurate numbers, you're ruining your reputation before you even get started because cash buyers are telling each other not to work with you. I've been there. I've run bad numbers before I knew what I was doing too. And that's why you need practice doing this before you start sending out real deals. I've got a link in the first comment where you can access a free training to how I run my numbers and start practicing today. Check out the first link in the description or watch this video right here so you can see the rehab calculator in action.